Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of Sports Talk with Chris P. I am deeming this episode an emergency episode because of the news that came out today from Woj, from whatever sources, about the Knicks angling to fire David Fizdale. This news comes after a blowout loss at home on a Sunday night to the Cleveland Cavaliers. After the game, no one was really expecting this. Steve Mills and Scott Perry came out and addressed the media and the TV cameras, went on MSG, um, talking about the product that has been on the floor for these first 10 games, which, obviously is disappointing. They said that obviously is not up to expectations. They said that. And what's going on is they've won 2 games in 10 tries, 2-8 record to start the season, and it's not what they expected. We know the talent level of this team isn't elite, isn't even ninth seed worthy, but it's not terrible. I certainly don't think it's 2-8 terrible. Um, so I'm going to be, quickly sharing my thoughts on this whole situation and just kind of talking myself through it, I suppose, and bringing you guys along. So, I hear this news and I think, like, okay, Fizdale has not been great so far. Now, we've handed him a roster that is not the prettiest of rosters throughout 2 years, actually. So, he hasn't had a great team to work with. But I also don't think that he's been that great of a coach. Really interesting. Someone from Knicks Reddit took a trip to Grizzlies Reddit and said, kind of, like, hey guys, Knicks Reddit here. We're concerned about Fizdale. What were your guys' biggest issues with Fizdale? Are we going to be okay? And Grizzlies Reddit came back and a bunch of them answered and talked about a lot of things that are still problems for Fizdale with Knicks fans today. And my worry there is, why hasn't he improved on these issues? Things like rotations, things like benching players for mistakes that probably are, like benchable for a few minutes, not for 4 games. Things like that. Things like his inability to consistently run plays, to have a consistent rotation, to run sets for his players that allow his players to be good in the ways that they are good, like just misusage of talent. And, these are all knocks on Fizdale. And I think that, like I acknowledged, he hasn't had the best rosters to work with, but he also hasn't done the best job as a head coach. And we have to take that into account when looking at, this is a rebuilding team. Is this the guy to lead our rebuild? They're clearly reconsidering that right now. I do think that although Fizdale has not been great, firing him will not fix our problems as a team. I say our, I will be saying we, our a lot this video. Again, I'm a Knicks fan, so you can view this as the perspective of a hopefully rational Knicks fan here. Um, I like Scott Perry. I do not like Steve Mills. I do not like James Dolan. That should be the consensus for Knicks fans right now. Hopefully, people are thinking, Perry hasn't been too bad since he got to this team. His biggest problem, in my opinion, is probably that it seems that he promised Elfrid Payton the starting point guard job when we signed him this summer. And because, he's liked Elfrid ever since Elfrid was drafted, pretty early in that draft. Perry made a deal to acquire him there from Philly, and I believe that he probably promised Elfrid that starting job, which is why guys like Frank aren't getting the opportunity that they deserve, I would say, especially after Frank's performance against Dallas. But in terms of our front office, everyone, Dolan, sell the team. Dolan, sell the team. I didn't think Dolan was that big of a problem these last few years. I think that he definitely told Mills and Perry to go out there and do this press conference last night against the Cavs, or after the game against the Cavs, but I don't think Dolan has interfered in basketball operations like he used to when he kind of vetoed that trade for Kyle Lowry we had in place, things like that. I don't think he's been doing that anymore. I do think that even if he's not interfering with basketball operations much anymore, kind of the stigma around him as an owner is a huge hit, and I would like him to sell the team. I think most people share that thought, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon, so can't really spend too much time thinking about that. Steve Mills is someone that Dolan has trusted for years to run this team. I'm going to get into that right now because I think that that's honestly going to be the focus of this quick episode is that David Fizdale, if he is fired, anytime in the coming days, is going to be the scapegoat here. And well, he has not done a good job. Like I said, firing Fizdale doesn't fix our problems. Our problems start at the top, and I think like you can say, oh, Knicks fans, we were really sure that Derek Fisher was the problem. Then we were really sure that Jeff Hornacek was the problem. And now we're sure that Fizdale is the problem. Who's next? And you kind of have to say, well, who's picking these coaches? None of those coaches, Fisher, Hornacek, and after this, probably Fizdale, if he's fired, will never be a head coach in the NBA again, or haven't been one so far. So who's really picking these coaches? I think all these coaches have been pretty worthy of being fired. And it's Steve Mills picking these coaches. 8 days after letting Phil Jackson make the Knicks draft selections in the NBA draft, the Knicks fired him. And the Knicks didn't have a general manager, so Steve Mills ran free agency operations for 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, he gave Tim Hardaway Jr. a 4-year, $72 million contract, and he gave Ron Baker a 2-year, $9 million contract with a no-trade clause. Things like this to me are just like, why? Why would you? The Hawks said that the highest offer they would match for Hardaway was 4 years, $52 million, was it? And we gave him 72. Why? Because Steve Mills was GM for 2 minutes and thought so. Thought that he thought that we should. I don't really unsure about that one. Another thing, the roster fits right now do not look great. That's not Fizdale's fault that the roster is not looking great. That's a Mills and Perry issue. But no one's making Fizdale start Morris, Randall, and a center and play those three all game. Morris, Randall, Portis, Morris, Randall, Gibson. And he's playing Portis like 30 minutes a game. You could start Frank and RJ next to another shooter and bench one of Morris and Randall. I've been saying for weeks now to put out a lineup of Frank, RJ, Knox, and Randall, and then Mitchell Robinson at center. Another option with his recent play, honestly, is to bench Julius Randle, put out Frank, RJ, Knox, Morris, and Mitch when he's back from his injury. Fizdale has not even tried this. Fizdale is starting Morris and Randle every single game, and it's not working, and he just keeps pounding that rock, to use a phrase that the Knicks did yesterday. And it's just not working. So that doesn't, the roster fits don't excuse Fizdale's choices with the team here, with the rotations, with the minutes. I think that, there's a lot of things wrong with the New York Knicks right now. David Fizdale is not the only problem. He is definitely a problem. So if you think that Fizdale deserves none of the blame here, he's just the scapegoat, get him a better team and see what he can do. You clearly have not watched the games and watched how he has coached this team thus far. If you say that Fizdale is the only problem, get a new coach and we'll be good to go, he'll gel these guys together and we'll be set. You also have not watched the games because you either haven't seen the coaching or the team play or whatever it is, but there's issues with both. And the team configuration, that's up to Perry and Mills. And I think Perry has done a good job since getting here. I think if someone has to go, it's the guy who hired Isaiah Thomas to be our general manager and then was rehired and made some questionable decisions, has made some questionable decisions after that in his 2 stints with the team. I think Steve Mills needs to stop receiving the blind trust of James Dolan and needs to have a new job. He needs to whether we demote him, whether we, completely fire him, I'm fine with either. I just would not like him to keep having the job that he currently has. I don't trust him with it anymore. Not that I really did in the past. Fizdale, in conclusion here quickly, is he's not the whole problem, but he's part of the problem. If you're defending him, you're part of the problem. If you're scapegoating him, saying, he's the only problem, you're also part of the problem. This was a very opinionated Knicks fan episode, but I think I had to get this done because this is big news for the franchise and I wanted to share my take on it. The last thing I'll add is I'm currently looking at a tweet by Complex Sports that says the Knicks are reportedly eyeing Raptors president Masai Ujiri so they can lure Giannis in 2021. I would like to say that I would bet every single dollar I have to my name, to whoever's name, whatever it is, that report is false. You track that report. I read The Athletic. I have a subscription. I read Isola's article. Frank Isola wrote that the Knicks would be offering Ujiri Phil Jackson type money as a means of getting him as our president and running our basketball operations. I think that although we would like that, I think that to say that we are going after him to lure Giannis is false. I think that that report may have been fabricated, whether it was or not. Either way, it makes for a good story. So maybe it was a little bit made up, a little bit embellished there. Um, Either way, I don't think that this is true. I think this is. I hate to say it, but I tweeted this, and I'll leave my Twitter in the description because I've tweeted out my thoughts today on this whole situation with the Knicks in general. But I did tweet. I said I can find it exactly. I wrote that Frank Isola starting the storyline of the Ujiri and Giannis thing, just so that when it inevitably doesn't happen, because we're not expecting this to happen as rational Knicks fans, so that he can yell at the Knicks when this doesn't happen and call them incompetent and say, "Oh, you did another big name chase and you failed," is very on brand for him. He likes setting things up just to bash the Knicks for when they don't happen. This is, nothing against his reporting, his writing. I just think that this is something he's done before. So this is something we should watch out for. I would take those reports with a grain of salt. And with that, I'm going to conclude this episode of Sports Talk with Chris P. This is, again, an emergency episode to talk about the Knicks news. Again, I'll leave my Twitter in the description. Comment your thoughts down below, whether you're a Knicks fan or not. I would like to hear what you have to say about my thoughts on this whole thing. You can tweet them to me. You can comment them down below. Either way, leave a rating on the video. Let me know if you enjoyed it. And thank you very much for listening. I'll see you guys next time.